Okay, this is going to be the final update of the layout. I'm going to have to set it aside for a while and get to other things for the summer and save it for rainy day type stuff. But I'll show you where I'm at and all the things that I've done since the last update. I guess we'll start here at the bottom of the line in Sewell. And I haven't got the lights in. I've got the valance, or the whole big valance up here. This is in primer. It's not painted. I haven't finished the edge down here because that'll be integrated with the fascia. As you can see, the trackside scenery backdrop is in, but I am going to do a little bit more blending up there to make that edge a little bit better. The upper panel is in up here, and it is painted blue to match the sky. I think technically in Sewell, the mountain should be a lot higher, but it would have looked weird to have it just stop at a straight line at the top of the backdrop, and it would have looked really weird to have it go out on the onto the top there. So I just settled for the best I could do, which was to end it just below the blue part there. Down here where the yard's going to be, I just threw a couple of cars in here. It's actually going to be pretty big. The tracks are spaced farther here because there'll be a mix of standard gauge and narrow gauge. All the tracks down here will be dual gauge. And it would have been nice if I could have had that a little lower back there, so there's more of a slope, but I guess this isn't bad here because this is technically level with the C&O. But as it comes up here, I know this distance is extremely compressed, but it should have had a little more slope right on the other side of the main line there. But that's the best I could get. It's going to be a little strange here. You can see I've got the Coke office here, which is about where it would have been. It's just more distance in here. But I'm going to have to kind of bring this hill in, typically, or where we are in Sewell, we would be up on the mountain looking down. But I need to get in here to operate two turnouts in here. And one of them is going to be right there, and one's going to be right there. And it's going to be a little bit of annoying to have this hill here. So I'm going to try to do something here. I'm not sure. I'll have to make that one powered for sure with a button, but it would be nice to see when it's thrown. Now the good thing is that one actually leads around to the front, and it goes over in front of the lumber office and the depot there, the freight depot. And that would have been dual gauge, but that would have gone to the C&O. I don't really need to switch that one that much. It's mostly just for, maybe putting some cars in and out. This is the one where the switching will be, and its turnout's going to be, in here where the hill, I can taper it back enough. That aisle does get a little narrow here because it tapers back at an angle towards the wall, but this area is like a once a day thing. It's not a yard, it's an interchange point, and I wouldn't be switching it more than once a day. And technically it's not even active in the period I'm modeling, but I wanted to include it just for some more operation. So as we leave Sewell, we come up here, the track starts to climb up a slight grade as it comes around the Coke yard office here, and you kind of get an idea what that's going to somewhat look like in there. You can see the tracks back there. And then I'm going to have to blend the scenery here. This is kind of how it really was, but the distance here is a little greater, and I'm going to have to, do some different things in here. This would have been a hill up here, just not quite as close, but pretty close. Again, I'll do the best I could, or I'll do the best I can. I've ended the edge right here because on the prototype, the wall on this side is 4 feet higher, or technically it went 4 feet lower than the wall on this side. And I don't have 4 feet, but I've got better than I had. So it'll be down along that edge there. So the main line will come up here. This will be dual gauge track. The engine house tracks will be narrow gauge only. And again, technically in the era I'm modeling, this engine house isn't even being used, but I'm going to make it, the tracks work and everything. So the tracks come around this curve here into the new dump area. This board here is going to support the fascia is going to come up a little high right here and down low to protect the water tank that'll be sitting on this side per the prototype. And then you can see there's where the tracks are going to go out onto the new dump trestle, and then they're going to go back on over there. And I've checked the slope here, and I've got a much more prototypical slope than on the last layout. But the trestle site is compressed. There should have been about almost 6 feet between this head house and this head house, and I've only got about 30 inches. So it'll have to be, the bridge between them won't come back to the land and then go back out. It'll have to just go straight across, which is still more prototypical than what I had when this one was on a stub track that went out next to this bridge. And on my previous one, the bridges were straight, where these are gonna be more like the prototype, where they'll leave the main line and make a sharp kind of curve out through them and then come back. And the trestle over here will be, unfortunately, not prototypical length, but I will be able to get 4 trestle bents in there, where my other one I only had 3. So it's a little better than it was. But I will like having the S-curve in there. This will all be dual gauge track, both tracks, which is the real reason why I redid this. Was it was just going to be too hard to put dual gauge into the other existing tipple and tear it apart and move the tracks and do all that fun stuff that I would have needed to do. It would have almost a total destruction, so I might as well just start over. Here's the hole here. I still have to wrap this and glue that through the hole in the backdrop there. There's going to be a piece coming through here that'll be attached here and here, but this is an 8-foot sheet of plywood and it ended right here, so I trimmed this back so I have a longer piece in here to stick in there, so I don't get a weird kink. It'll be a big fascia all in here. I'm going to probably put a recessed shelf in here for paperwork. And then this side is again in primer. If you look before in my updates, I cut the hole in the wrong spot, then I cut the hole in the right spot for the previous dump trestle, then I had to fill that one, then fill that one, and then move this one over here. And so, but I filled all this in here. I lined this out with masonite. This is all filled and sanded, so when this is all painted black, this will look pretty cool. This will kind of wrap in here and somewhere in here, but this will all be black. Everything will be painted black in here, which, it doesn't hide the fact that there's a hole there. I'm not going to try to make a magic trick to say, oh, there's no hole there, but it will be nice when all of this is black. This will wrap enough around this, you won't see this hard edge. The walls all back here will be black, so that hole won't pop out quite as significant as it does now. At least your eye won't be drawn to it. There will be some trees right here. Kind of this hill will come up because it'll come down to here, so that'll be a hill up to here, almost to the top, and then the fascia will kind of come down just like I did the other one and come down into here. The track is a little closer to the edge than the other one, but not much. But it's straighter here as it comes along, and then it's going to go back. And it slowly starts to pull away and go down all that hill and down into Sewell down there. So I'm really happy with all this. I'm going to be glad I redid it after all, even though it's really hard to tear up that other section I worked so hard to save. Haven't put the bridge in yet. Pieces are cut. Nothing much has changed over here. The main line goes up. And lighting, you saw I installed. I started to get ready to install lighting here, but I realized I forgot to order the color LEDs, and I'm not gonna install the aluminum piece in here until I get the LEDs, all the LEDs I need, because it's just so much easier to work on the floor and then screw them up there without trying to bend over and stick another piece of tape on just because I don't have it right now. Steps are here. Oops, carpet's not installed because I don't know if I mentioned before, but I'm waiting to use some padding from an upstairs room. I'm going to recarpet, but I'll scavenge that padding and put this all in padding in here. Coming up on top of here, This is a pretty neat scene as the train's going to come climbing up the grade there. You can see kind of what level it's at to myself. I did get the sheetrock in here. I still got to tape and fill that seam there, but that'll be painted blue to match that. Then there'll be a piece of masonite curve. You can see I'm kind of figured out the length I'm going to need in there. Install a couple more lights up in here. These lights will be off when the layout's running. They'll only be on, for example, if my wife needs to come over and access the circuit breaker box, or something when I'm not here. When they turn on the main room lights, this hallway will be all lit up, and then so will those lights up there. Although I'm going to replace those with something better. Those are just temporary for now. But when I operate the layout, only the layout lights will be on, and all these lights will be off here. There will be a valance screwed up to the ceiling, just like I did over at the mine number 7 site. And that'll come all the way down here, integrate into a fascia that'll come down, kind of come down onto here, and then I'll make a nice piece in here that'll curve up, come over, and then curve down and meet that. And this will all be painted black in here. As we go along here, this roadbed's all in except for that piece that's going to go down into Landisburg there. But the one into Clifftop is in. Again, this will be hidden here. There'll be the backdrop will wrap around here, and there'll just be some little holes cut there. And then the fascia will come up to a high hill here to kind of hide the fact that it's going through a hole in the backdrop, so you won't be able to look in there and see that. The trains will just disappear behind a hill and some trees. So as we come into the Clifftop area, you can see the big hole I'm going to have to hide, but the backdrop's in here and painted blue for now. This is a mine here. This will be raised up. Haven't got any of the risers in here yet. Probably not gonna until fall. But the roadbed's all in. And this will be the location. I gotta trim this off here. The strip tipple will sit here, and this will be the piece that'll go out past the back of the strip tipple there. Pretty much fills that whole scene there. It's just a piece of leftover scenery there. And then we're going to come along here. This is the runaround here. And originally when I put this in here, I made it per my original plan. But then I decided that I wanted to have a little bit more car capacity in the runaround to run just a little bit longer trains. So I kind of scabbed on some more pieces of spline here, so I can bring this line. I can curve it a little more out this way. You can see I've drew on the line here where it's going to kind of come over, and then I put another one on the back side, so I swung this radius out just a little bit more. You can see where it ends here. So the track's going to be between these black lines here, and then it's going to be a curve switch here, and that'll just give me 2 more car capacity up here, which will make it a lot nicer to switch up here. The other thing different than the plan I had is, let me move this out of the way here, is originally out of the car shops here, this was a stub track, and it's not a stub track on the prototype. On the prototype, this switch is right here, but it curves off, almost making more than a 90-degree corner, and the company store is over here on the other side of Mans Creek. Now, obviously I don't have that room here. That would take a giant layout in O-scale. But it bothered me that this was a stub track, because they would sometimes work on locomotives back here, and not all the locomotives can go through the car shop because, for example, shade number 8 had a much too tall stack, and they could only back it in on this end. But they still put some small shades back here, and I just thought it'd be nice to be able to access both ends. For example, if there's a car being worked on here, I can say that, well, that one can't be moved, so you have to use this tail track here. So, and then we'll get to that in just a second over here. But the 2 tracks come around here, and then they kind of curve off that way, which they kind of did a little bit, I guess. This was more of a curve on the prototype. It kind of curved back a little bit here, but I had to curve it the other way because there's a wall there. There'll be a couple more structures in here, an old foundry building and another small shed and some metal racks. On the prototype, there would have been a couple of houses down here. I'm going to see if I can get one in down there, kind of a compressed version. I'm not sure though. And then this siding here is where I was going to have the company store, because I really wanted to model it full scale, and it wouldn't obviously fit back over here. But the more I kept thinking about it, the more it kept bothering me that I didn't have the engine house up here, because in the period that I'm modeling, cliff top would have been the base of operations, and they built a single stall, 2-engine long engine house. And so what I've decided to do is, so this piece of cardboard is the size of the engine house. It was really that skinny and it was really that long, but it would fit in here. And here was the footprint of the old company store. Kind of see how big that thing is. It's pretty large. 4 stories, 3 stories above ground and 1 below, and it was built on a hill, so railroad cars went in the basement. And this would have been the post office, but it's just so big. And it would have fit in here. It would have been really awesome to come in and just see this big store here, all built full scale, big windows, you could see right inside of it. But after I started thinking more about operations, I just think that the company store really wasn't extremely significant in the operation, and the engine house would have been. So I decided to use this track for the engine house, even though it would have technically been over on the other side of Mans Creek over there. There's just no room. I mean, I'm not even gonna be able to have Mans Creek in there. There'll just be a tree line and a simulation of that Mans Creek is back there, which is good, because I would have to have it somehow come over here and somehow flip to the other side, which it wouldn't have done, because my strip loading tipple is going to be on the wrong side of the track. It should be right here on this side, but the thing would be so tall we'd never be able to see around it, and it would be impossible to operate. So I stuck it on the other side and then turned it around, so it's not a mirror image. It's just switched from this end, which in the prototype it would have been switched from this end. But it's the best I could do with what I've got, considering this is O scale and that strip tipple is not compressed. So anyways, this will be the engine house on this side. And what I'm going to do for the company store, if we come back here, is it's just going to be simulated as a full backside here, full height, and a little bit of wall, and then I'll have to put maybe a tall tree right here, or some tall trees to kind of hide the fact that it ends right at the backdrop. And I don't think we'll ever switch a car in there. If I ever just say we're going to spot a car at the car shop, we can just stick it right outside of here. I don't even really know how often they would have switched at the car shop, or at the the company store. Maybe if I get it, I don't know if I can get enough with the turnout in here, because I really want to be able to get a locomotive back in here. But I think I'm going to just end it like right there, and then there'll be an ice house over here. So that's how that's taking shape. There will be a fascia. You can see I've kind of just started bringing it around here. That'll integrate. It'll kind of come up and tie into the valence. That'll come up here. There'll be LEDs up here too as well. The fascia here will be probably like this around here. And then below this, there'll be curtains to cut off the entire edge of this platform here. It'll kind of just come around. So it'll look like a solid floor. There won't be that area to step off there. Really, really happy with this cliff top area and how it's turning out. It's really fun to go up in there as its own separate room, away from all the other layouts and all the other trains. It's worked out really well. So now we'll come down here, and if a train were to take the back side of the switch, go to Landisburg, we would walk down here, and here's where so this will be a door on here, a little teeny door, and this will be, I was going to make a storage room back here, but I think I am going to build like a dispatcher, kind of a train operator's desk right in here, and this is where will be the base of operations. I'll keep track of paperwork in here. There'll be a small chair in here. I think it'd be really a neat place. If there is a need for it during operation, that'd be a fun job to kind of be inside of here. But we'll walk around here. Now this platform creaks a little bit because it's still not, all fully screwed to the wall, because I've raised it up and down and up and down and up and down, and finally settled in where it's going to be. So here's the hole coming in. You can see the line to cliff top actually swung farther on this side of the backdrop, so I kind of had to cut that out more, but this will be a hill covering all that anyways. The line to Landisburg, I had to take it off of the Homosilk spline because I needed it to be a little lower. I decided I wanted Landisburg lower because it's a little bit wider down here and there's a little more turnout slightly farther away, and I didn't want to be, because of its height, I think it's, if I remember right, it's 52 to the floor. Some people might have a harder time reaching all the way across, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this piece of a 1/4 inch plywood, and it'll be attached here, and it'll kind of span this gap, and then it will go up and meet the spline road bed up at the top up there. So I get it kind of squared up in there. So this will be flex track on here up to the point where it reaches out back onto the cork. And the reason why I'm using cork and 3/4 inch plywood in here is because down here, this is from my original Slater Creek Railway, and this was meant to be a piece used from the original railroad, and same with the dump trestle, but it turns out this is the only piece I'm going to use. And you might think, well, you know, again, I actually worked so hard to get this integrated in here, all to save just a couple turnouts. You know, there's, I don't know, what is there, 1, 2, 3, 4 turnouts. But I'm still happy I did it because it was you know, it all worked well. It kind of has a neat flow. And what I ended up doing was, originally I was going to take this track out, or this turnout out, and flip it the other way. But as I sat in here and I looked at the real Landisburg, they had, you know, 3 tracks coming in, and even though mine are in a kind of a wrong order, it still simulates that 3 tracks through Landisburg by the company store. And so I was originally going to have the company store down here, but now I'm going to do it more like Landisburg. Now this is not the Landisburg store, this is one from my old layout, but it's going to be sitting kind of where this store is. Landisburg would have had more of a single story on the track side here, and more of a western type false front. And there was some other buildings alongside of it here. And the scenery slopes down in the back, and there's a lower story in the back there. Now there was this other turnout back here that I was going to take out, but I decided to keep it, and I'm just going to build a short little spur kind of off of there, and I don't know what I'll use it for. It's not prototypical, but you know, I could always use a spur for something. This is the track going to the Landisburg drying yard, which would have crossed Laurel Creek, I think it was. I think I'm saying that. Oh, right here. And now it actually went across all the tracks, completely different layout than I have now, but this is what I could fit in here. And this will still be, I decided to still make this a coal mine. I was kind of thinking maybe I wouldn't, but I just don't want to lose all the different coal mines. You know, I already lost one down here, and actually they had a coal mine in Landisburg that they used to mine locomotive, or coal for the locomotives, and which ended up becoming the big coal mine for the NF&G when they developed this area and mined all the coal that was under the log pond and everything. But this will kind of simulate that. The whole thing is extremely condensed, but at least I'll get the operations in there. Now, one of the things I did was, this was originally mounted down on this thing has gotten so beat up. I'm so glad it's gonna be covered with fascia, but I had to come in here and with a sawzall and cut all the risers because they were screwed ever so conveniently right below all this hand laid track. And if you look at this track, this is back when I was using the micro spikes, 4 spikes. I was going back, I haven't finished some of them over there, but 4 spikes in every tie. And so I wasn't about to rip those up, so I sawzalled through those and put some new risers, and it was just an absolute nightmare of sawing. And then putting the Bondo in here to blend it all in so it's all nice and smooth. But the problem was I had already screwed and glued this down before I decided I wanted that raised up. And so now my line to the drying yard actually comes down a short little grade here, and it comes on over to here, which is basically just one big flat sheet of plywood. And you can see, so these white squares are representing lumber stacks. I've just kind of been playing around to see how they're all going to fit in here. There's going to be the tail ends of the elevated docks they had in here to stack the lumber. The lumber would have been stacked 30 feet high at the max, and then the docks in here are 15 feet high. And you can see I was able to kind of arrange in here so I could get 4 tracks in here. This will be a wide turnout on the bridge, and it will go across. There'll be one there, one there, one there, and one out there. And then I'll have, you know, lumber stacks in here to kind of hide the fact that that hits the backdrop. And I think that's gonna be pretty good. You know, it wouldn't even technically exist in my era, but I'm gonna keep it in there anyways. And I'll be able to get enough cars out of there for one train once a day. Now, I added this little piece on here. Originally I was going to end it into the wall here and have an engine house here, but I added this little thing on here so the engine house will be over on this side. And I think it'll work out better because I can get a little more space. But the only problem is that to make the tracks not complicated in here, I'm going to have to access the engine house with kind of a switchback. So there'll be a stub track here, and you'll have to kind of go in here like this. If I didn't do it, there would have been, you know, some kind of weird, you know, these turnouts are already really tight, and it would have been like some kind of a lap type turnout that would have been hard to fit. It would have been half on the bridge here, and I just thought, forget it. I'm just going to put a little switchback here. It won't really matter. Engine house is not even really part of the operation. So that's where I'm at. Now I'm going out to do work in my shop and do car work. Some of you guys kind of saw engine parts laying around here. Well, those engine parts are going to be installed and built up, and I'll just be saving the layout work for a rainy day. Thanks for watching.